and we are working on how can we increase the frequency or increase the time. So the key thing here is the knowledge. That's what we are majorly focusing on. What is that we are going to gain in this one? Okay. So if you get into this details of this study guide, so in this study guide, what we are going to do is we are going to get into each and every section. Okay, what is each and every section in this one? So if you see that last time we did couple of learning modules. So last time we started with implementing the infrastructure. So in that, anyone who's not speaking, please go on mute. That will be of great help. Thank you. So we started with infrastructure as a code. So where we went and we did couple of things to go and explore, like how do you create how do you create this infrastructure using Terraform, sorry, using ARM templates, PowerShell, and those kind of things which we did it. So now what we are doing is it's like a prerequisites. So once we create this infrastructure, what are we going to do with that? Okay. So let's see this syllabus. What in this syllabus? We'll go with the syllabus, whatever is given by Microsoft, and we'll follow that. So in this implement infrastructure as a service, in that implement infrastructure as a service, if you go and see that, we have covered two things. We covered provision virtual machines and create and deploy infrastructure using ARM templates. We didn't touch manage container images using Azure Container Registry and run container images. We didn't touch that. And also, if you come back to this one, create Azure App Service, we didn't touch that. Why? Because we just created some of the infrastructure. So what do you do with that infrastructure? Once you ask this question, okay, you have spun up an Azure virtual machine, maybe Ubuntu virtual machine or Windows virtual machine. What do you do with that? We installed IAS, we installed Nginx, we installed Apache, and we saw accessing the home page of that. Apart from that, we didn't do anything. Now, if I want to deploy something, how do I deploy? How do I create applications? So whatever 1.5 hours to 2 hours we are going to spend today is like a prerequisites for that. Once we created this here, virtual machine we have created, maybe using PowerShell or Azure CLI or ARM templates or Bicep or Terraform, whatever the mechanism or manual, you created it. But how do you deploy applications inside that? How do you configure IAS? What ports you have to open? How can you install? Do you use WinSCM or do you use Visual Studio or do you use any other mechanism to drop it manually, physically copy files? It could be any ways. OK, but it should be through automation. Everything should be automation, but there are multiple ways to do that. We need to see step by step. We will go that. So we need to have a bunch of applications. So that's what we are doing it. So whatever the applications which we do will be used to deploy applications in IAS. We'll configure that and we'll see if time permits. Definitely we'll spend time. If not time permits, we will do it. We'll deploy something into Linux side of the world. We'll deploy something on the Windows side of the world on IIS and something on Linux side of the world. We'll see that maybe it could be on Kestrel or it could be on Nginx. We'll see what, but we will try. We will definitely do that. And then we'll come back and deploy applications in app service. Once you do this difference, deploy it on IIS or on Nginx or on Kestrel, on Windows and Linux machines. And when you start deploying the same application on app service, then you will understand that how much of heavy lifting is done by the cloud provider Azure. So when you want to deploy something on virtual machine, you will take a lot of pain. I mean, that's part of the process. It's not pain. I don't want to call it as a pain, but it's a part of the process. You need to do all these things. But when you deploy the same application on app service, they do click, click, click and click, and it brings up everything. So now you know the difference, what these architects and other people who are involved in these creating these app services and other services in the cloud provider, how much of heavy lifting they are doing it. So that's very important. OK, that being said, let's come back to today's session. This is my GitHub repository, Vishy Pylor. I will give it, just keep it handy. That will be very, very much. What? I don't have chat option. And can someone ping me hi? Let me try to reply back. Why it's not displaying anything? Can someone ping me hi? On the chat, I'm not able to see any option.
Swami, for some reason you don't have the chat, but everyone else has it. So don't worry. For some reason you don't have the chats, but everyone else has it. So no problem. I'll drop your GitHub URL in the chats. Don't worry.
Okay. Thanks so much, Stephen. So that's my GitHub, and specifically all the series which we are doing will be under Speaker Series 2021 C# Corner. That's where these things are there. OK. Also, I'm maintaining an MS Learn module because how many modules we are covering, that's also we will track it. So our intention is to learn the knowledge. We'll go step by step. We'll take baby steps, but we will learn. The key intention is knowledge. I can do in an entire session in 1 hour, but I'm not feeling that as good thing to do. OK, so this is session 2. So let me quickly walk you through what are we going to do here. I've given the recording of the previous session. The same thing I'll do when we go to the session 3. I'll give 2 recordings, session 1 and session 2 here. That will help. Once this session published, I'll update this one. So let's have all the documentation and source code at one place. A lot of things we will be doing. As I was mentioning, today's session is prerequisites for multiple things. So one of the prerequisites is whatever the infrastructure which we deploy, these applications, some of these applications will go and deploy. And some of these applications will create containerization of that. We'll see that also. OK, and that's one thing. And another thing is how do you deploy that in app service? So for 3 different things, how do you deploy on IaaS or on virtual machines? Let's call it as a virtual machine, Windows and Linux. And how do you deploy that to the container instance and container registry? And how do you deploy to app service? So for all these 3 topics, whatever we are doing today is a foundation block for that, right? So let me log into my virtual machine. Some of the things I need to show it from there. So just give me a minute. I will quickly log in there. Let me log in, then we'll start. Takes 1 minute time. OK, that's pretty cool. So let's come back to this one. This is the resource group which you're going to use today. I already created those resources, but I'm going to create it again now. So there's something called dev001. These are the 2 things which we have it. So let's create it again. So let's see what are we going to do today. And please fasten your seatbelt. And my favorite slide. I am still a learner. Apologize if I do any mistake. So what are we going to do today? Well, we'll see about what is SQL Azure. We'll spend a couple of minutes on that. And this section we have already seen, but let's deploy that virtual. Let's deploy the SQL Server and database again. It takes few minutes, not more. And then what do we do is we will punch the hole in the firewall. That means once you create SQL Azure, even if I publish the username password of this SQL Azure on internet, people will not be able to join until unless I punch the hole in the firewall. I need to give that. So we are selectively giving the virtual network. So only the virtual machines within this virtual network will be able to log into this database. Apart from that, no one else will be able to log in. We'll see that in a moment. And then the next thing what we will do is we'll use Visual Studio 2022 to deploy the database. There are multiple ways like code first approach, or you create the scripts and you deploy, and multiple mechanisms. One of the way is to create the SQL project and deploy the DAC pack. So that's what we do. We can do that using GitHub Actions also. That we will do it in future, few sessions down the lane. But as of today, we will do it through the Visual Studio 2022. We'll see that the DAC pack and the SQL getting deployed. We see that it creates the table as well as it creates the stored procedures and updates the default data. And then we'll see what the CosmosDB is from a 30,000 feet height. And then we'll create the CosmosDB using the ARM template. And why are we doing this? We'll see how the things are, and then we'll create a web API using .NET 6, which interacts with the SQL Server. We'll get all the data here, and we'll have another web API which talks to the Cosmos DB. Now we understand why did we create those two data stores. One is SQL, one is NoSQL. OK, we'll get deep into the weeds of what is SQL and what is Cosmos. Like if you see, that's exclusively on Cosmos. That's a separate topic. 1 or 2 sessions will be on that, but let's just touch up on it and work on it. And then we'll discuss few of those things on what is dependency injection, what is app settings, what is Secrets.json, and the layered architecture. And then we'll work on this Blazor WASM and how do you integrate it with the web API. So this web API, whichever is on a books, will integrate with that. So that we will play around. How do you create it on your local machine? How do you execute it on your local machine and with Docker? Let's play around on all these things. So once you play with the Docker, that will be the prerequisites for this section, these 2 sections. Like you have a Docker image, now you can push it to the Docker Hub or Azure Container Registry, and you can deploy it to the Azure Container Instance or to application app service, single container or multi-container. We'll see both. OK, so again, I want to take 1 minute time to tell about this point. The intention is we learning knowledge. It's not the number of episodes or number of hours. We need to learn the knowledge. That's very important. OK, so let's start and let's do that. So here is the resource group. Here I have these resource groups. It's with dev001. Now let's create with dev002. So let me come back. These all are my old files. I will close everything and let me come back and close this one also and come to the SQL Server where I have these parameters. Wherever I mentioned it as dev001, I will convert that into 002. So that way what happens is we will be sure that it creates a new one. Let's see how many places this is there. Let's replace dev002. So that's cool. The first thing is we'll go and deploy. Let's deploy these 2 resources, then we'll come back and we'll start speaking on that. Go into that and E2. You have everything in that repository. Validate. So there are 2 files in every section because this is the folder which we will start incrementally add more and more files, deployment files, ARM templates, because we don't want to go to the portal and click all those buttons and we might miss anything. So it's just like speed and repeatable. And then I'm going to deploy that. So there will be deploy file, there will be parameters file. And once we change parameters, it goes and deploy. There will be one script for validate and one script for deploy. And all those files are available in the same repo. Here in the same repo, if you go and see that the folder is infrastructure, you will find inside the ARM templates. This is what we will focus more and more. At this point of time, we have Cosmos, Ubuntu, Key Vault, Web App, SQL, and storage. And as and when we grow old in these sessions, we'll improvise, we'll do more and more modifications. And each section will have its own documentation. So we'll follow that documentation. So let me come back and let's see. Did we do deploy? OK, looks like that guy has deployed. Let's add. Sorry. Someone has muted their phone, please. I'm able to hear someone is typing. So we are deploying the SQL. So it's starting. OK, so now that it is it has started the deployment, let's spend some time on the theoretical stuff here. You can see that I've given a link to the official documentation. What is Azure SQL? You would have had this SQL Server on your local machine. You would have had the SQL Express or SQL instance, or you would have had on your server or on your private data center, or different ways you would have had this database. And nowadays, every cloud provider are providing their own way to provision this one. So SQL Azure is also providing this one. So how many ways you can do is you can create a SQL Azure. One is manage instance, one is on virtual machine. So once you go and create a virtual machine, one of the flavor of the virtual machine is that comes with the SQL Server. OK, and now everything underlying maintenance or the patches, everything will be on our shoulders, that responsibility. So it's like IaaS workload. And the other one is 100% almost matching with the local instance. That's the one, this one. And we are using the SQL Azure. Let's get deep into that once we go in future episode. As of today, we need a database. We are using SQL Azure, the first type. The first type, we are using it, and it is of very low cost. So it did deploy. So let's come back to the resource group and let's check that. And what is that? Oh. It did deploy the same SQL Server, I think so. See that? It didn't change. Ow, I didn't save the file. It's my mistake. I'm sorry for that. Right. Actually, I didn't save that. That's my mistake. That's what I'm saying. It took few seconds and it said the deployment is done. I was worried. How can that be? So coming back to the discussion, we saw quite a few methods. There's another method also we can do that I would like to show it here. When you see that, another way to deploy, let's assume you don't want the SQL Server, maybe the IIS Express or local instance, or you don't want to maintain anywhere, or not even in any cloud provider. Still, you have been covered here. So let's see that. So one of the way you can do that is this way you can create the SQL Server. OK, it's very easy. You can create a SQL Server as a container. So all you have to do is MS SQL Server as Docker. Someone is themselves, guys, please unmute yourself. Sorry, mute yourself, please. So you can go to this Docker Hub. And inside this Docker Hub, you have the latest version, 2022, as well as you have 2019, 2017. You can create this Docker image. So I have provisioned the SQL Server in the Docker image and I used it. So different ways to use that. It's not a hard and fast rule that you need to have the SQL Server either on-premise or on either on-premise or on Azure. You can have as a Docker container. That will be pretty easy. You spin up, you dismantle it, but a lot of considerations you need to do that we will come back and discuss on volume, which maintains it behind the scene. So let's keep this option open. And also let me open the Azure Data Studio. I just want to show you a couple of things there. And let's come back over here. It's still running. And I want to speak on the tools in the meanwhile. So one of the tools which I like it very much is this Azure Data Studio. Let me close this. Let it give me the control. And you can have the Azure SQL from here. How many ways you can connect to SQL Server? You can connect it through the Visual Studio Code. You can do this one, or you can use Visual Studio 2022, the full Visual Studio, or you can use with Azure Data Studio. So multiple ways you can connect. So this is the one which I have created. I just want to show that. And I mean, we are creating the new one. We are not going to use the existing one because I want to show it everything from scratch. So it's there. You can connect it like this, or you can connect it from the Visual Studio Code itself, or you can use Visual Studio 2022. So there are multiple ways. We'll see at least two ways we'll see, one with Azure Data Studio, one with this one. So let's come and see. Looks like the deployment is done. Let's come and verify that it has created 002. OK, so now let's come back to that resource group and just do a refresh. OK, so it has created 002. Let's park it a minute because it's going to take some more time for us to create the CosmosDB. So we are doing everything live, guys. It's not anything pre-created. I just pre-created. I tested all the scripts just to ensure that if something is failing, I can fall back. OK, I will create the containers live. Let's leave it as it is. This one is the CosmosDB dev 001 because that's what I have it over here. So let me create a new one with 002. I will change that. There's one replacement and it has created. So the scripts, everything is there. As you have seen that we are executing the scripts and it is creating the resources. 6. That's for the CosmosDB. All you need to do is just do a validate, ensure that the parameters file as well as the deploy file. Both are good. And then just do a deploy. It will take care. So let the deployment start. We'll start exploring the SQL Server. OK, so as I was mentioning, whatever the things which we are doing today is prerequisites for 6 to 8 MS modules, the pieces of MS modules. This is dependent. This is used in 6 to 7 modules there. We'll reuse this one because this is a foundational block. OK, now coming back to that, we have created the SQL Server. Let me get some extra space. Here is our new SQL Server. You see that one is the SQL Server and SQL DB is the database. You can see that that's a server and there's a database. You can come into this SQL Server, and all the time I show it the hard way because I do mistake and I'll show that what is the mistake and how to correct it. OK, I'll have a glass of water. I still remember in one of the demo where I was showing like this, I told that I'm going to do mistake. One guy said that author is not well prepared. He's having a lot of mistakes. OK, again, I'm telling multiple times I'll do a lot of mistakes just to showcase that how to fix it. Come on, let's go and connect it through the Azure Data Studio. Let's go to this box, my virtual machine, and let's go to this Azure Data Studio and let me connect from here. We are here. That's the one. And the username is.
Sorry, the பத்தி நம்ம திரும்பி பேசுவோம்டா clear-ஆ neat-ஆ.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. OK. So I'm just trying to connect. So here it says that cannot open the SQL Server so and so requested by the login. Client is not allowed to access this. That means even if I publish this username password, none of you will be able to access this. So we have to fix that. So how do you fix it? So this is the database and we will go to the SQL Server. And inside the SQL Server, show network settings. And inside that, here, my virtual machine, whatever this virtual machine is part of one of the virtual network. So what I'm doing is I'm saying that add the virtual network. OK, that's this one. VNet dev boxes and it creates a service endpoint. I'm fine with that. And I'm clicking on that. Now it is adding. So you can see that in the documentation, which we created this. And the first thing what we have to do is we have to come and punch the hole in the firewall to allow this virtual machine. So that's what we are doing it, the first piece. So it has successfully added that. Now, if you come back and if we try to connect it, it goes and connects it properly. You can see that it has connected to this database, which we have created newly. And you can see that there are two databases that master is here in the system database and SQL DB books store dev 002. And within that, there are no tables and there are no stored procedures. That's good. Well and good. So now we do the same thing over here. I'll come back to this one. Right mouse click on this and click on properties. And inside this properties, ensure that the target is Microsoft Azure SQL database. You can deploy it to your local machines also here. And the managed instance is this one. And we will keep it Microsoft Azure SQL Server. And go to the debug. And here click on edit. And this edit will throw the dialog box, and we know we have to connect it to this dev002. So let me paste that dev002 and I'll key in the password. And let me use this drop down list box to select the database and select test connection. The connection succeeded. I just click on OK. So I close this. And then here, this is the SQL project. And inside the DB, I have table. That table is the books table. That's where I'm creating this. You will see the tabular representation and you will have this. That's the designer and this is like a SQL. And I have programmability where I have 5 small stored procedures like add, delete, get all, get by ID, and update, and post deployment scripts. So the post deployment scripts is I have the script where I'm going to add set of books. So Srivaru, Scott Rudy, Krishna Nair, George Reddy, Mithun Nair, Mohammad Hafiz, Nikhil Grover, Jagdish Jolapalli. So there are a few of the authors. I'm just adding it, and that gets added as part of this this post deployment. It's a pretty simple SQL project, and we have to see a couple of things. It creates a DAC pack as well as the SQL Server, and ensure that you have selected this as a startup project. Right now, I have this in my local machine, which I'm going to push it and I'll publish it. Excuse me for one more week or 2 weeks. I will push it and I'll publish. Where do I push this one? I have created a new repository and I just want to show that repository also. So that it will be easy for you. I already started pushing the CosmosDB code is already in here. So learn AZ-204 in 2022 and 2023. And here have the CosmosDB and other things, whatever I'm showing, I will push it here under respective like SQL Server and the web APIs. I'll see how best I can organize, but everything you'll get it here. Just make a note of this. Learn AZ-204 in 2022, 2023. It will be here, guys. So we did that. And then click on start. Once you click on start, you come and see this output. Just focus on that. It builds it and it is creating the model. And you can see that writing the script. And you can see that this is the folder Latrishna repos bookstore DB blah 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 blah. And here is where it's creating run. And I'm going to that location in the debug. You can see that it created the DAC pack. And also it created the DLL as well as the it created the query file. So we'll see that. Let's wait. It creates a SQL file. I just want to show you that. Yeah, this one. So writing it. So bookstore create, that's the SQL file. So if I open that as part of, let's open it in this VS Code itself. You can see this, it's a big deployment file. So some of the people, they maintain this kind of big SQL file and they add it every release. It's like they put it in the version control system and they go and update it. So we don't need to do all these things. That's being taken care by the Visual Studio. So it has created the DAC pack, it created the SQL, and it went and started the deployment script generated. And that's what is this deployment script. It generated that. And let's see the deployment script. And here is the deployment script. OK, that's the deployment script. And it went and it deployed that. So now we can come back to this one and right mouse click and do a refresh. And you see that the stored procedures are there. And here right mouse click on the tables and you do refresh. And that's pretty cool. You have it here. And now let's come back to this one. I'll show you another thing. Here is this. I'm the owner of this subscription. I want to go into this. What is that? OK, this is the database. That's the SQL Server. I'm sorry for that. And I'm going to this database and I've got the query editor. When I go to query editor, let me key in the password. You see that? I'm the owner of this Microsoft subscription. And I have created this database. I have the username password, but still it doesn't allow me because this IP is not whitelisted. The only thing what we whitelisted is any virtual machine which has been deployed under that virtual network. Only that is allowed. So I'll leave it there because I don't want to punch the hole in the firewall. So I keep it as it is and come back to this network settings. Previously, they used to call show firewall settings. Now they're calling it as network settings. Now you can see that this IP address. If I say add the client IP address, then I'll be able to log into that database from my IP. Tomorrow, if the router's IP changes, again, I need to add it. So that's not the safest thing to do. So the only thing what we are saying is we have whitelisted only the one virtual network. So any virtual machine which has been deployed inside this virtual machine will be able to access that. That's what we are doing it. So there are two ways we can do. One is the whitelisting mechanism. One is the blacklisting mechanism. Once upon a time in good olden days, we used to do blacklist. Someone is coming and hitting it from this virtual IP. We say that, hey, this is not allowed. Let's blacklist that guy and let's blacklist this guy. Let's blacklist this guy. Now the world has changed. Now we whitelist. We say that, OK, I'm going to allow only Rohit Tomar. And then I say that, OK, Steven wants it. I'm going to allow Steven. Now Hafiz wants it. I'm going to whitelist Hafiz machine. So I have whitelisted 3. Rest of the world, none of those people will be able to access it. So that's the first piece we have conquered. So what did we do? We did the introduction of the SQL Server. We created the SQL Server and we punched the hole in the firewall. And then we connected in 2 different ways. We connected using Azure Data Studio, which is a cross-platform tool. And then we connected through the Visual Studio 2022 and we did the deployment. We saw the DAC pack, we saw the SQL file, and that got deployed. Here we saw that. And we went back to this Azure Data Studio. And inside that Azure Data Studio, we verified the tables as well as this. And I can right mouse click and select top 1000. I still see all the records which has been deployed as part of the post deployment, like Srivaru, Scott Rudy, Krishna Nair, George Reddy, Mithun Nair, Mohammad Hafiz, Nikhil Grover, and Jagadish Julapalli. These are some of the authors which I have added it here. So we saw that. Now the next thing is we'll come back what CosmosDB is. Then let's see that the script which we executed. Now let's come back to the resource group. And inside the resource group, when I do refresh, we see that a CosmosDB has been created. Let's go and see, spend 2 minutes time to the CosmosDB because we said that there is an exclusive MS Learn module. We might discuss in 3 to 4 hours. It's not 2 minutes discussion what CosmosDB is. A minimum 2 hours plus is needed for that. So right now I'll give you 30,000 feet height introduction of what CosmosDB is, but again we'll come back and we'll discuss for 2 to 4 hours time. It's a pretty lengthy discussion. It's not going to happen. I mean, whatever 2 to 4 hours I'm going to spend, it's like a drop in a big ocean. OK, that's not a full length discussion, but I'll do my level best to do justice to the time you guys are spending in here. So welcome to the CosmosDB. Thank you so much. And that's the NoSQL database. NoSQL is SQL plus. Okay, it's not that there's no SQL. We have a flexibility, and you can have the core SQL API, Mongo API, Cassandra, Gremlin, as well as table. As of today, we'll spend the SQL Server. Again, we'll come back and revisit. We'll not spend any time on this one. The only thing is the one of the good advantage of the Cosmos DB is that gives the SLA of sub-millisecond. Okay, that fast it is, pretty fast. Okay, and you can see that all the resources which I created, is in East US. Please understand, I'm in India, but I'll create all the resources. See the power, how fast we will get it. We'll see that in a minute. Okay. That being said, we'll just spend this Cosmos DB. It's a NoSQL. We didn't learn anything on SQL Azure. We said that SQL Azure we created and we started deploying. Now we'll create Cosmos DB. We said that it's a NoSQL and we have at least a minimum 5 types. One is core SQL. One is MongoDB. There's a lot of improvement in MongoDB. Anyone who's very much comfortable or they have MongoDB, we can use this one also, Cosmos here. And we have Gremlin. We have Gremlin and we have Cassandra. So you can see that column family, key value, documents, and the graph. We can use lot of these things, and we'll come back and we'll discuss a minimum 2 sessions, 4 hours guaranteed in this one. So that's been created. And how can we play with this? Just want to show you that we can come into this and you have a lot of things are there. We'll come back and we'll learn that. I just want to show you the key pieces which is needed. We will need the URI. And we'll need the keys, primary or secondary keys, and the database name for us to communicate with this. What is advantage? I just want to spend quick 2 minutes time to create one hello world of the record before we proceed further. Let me have another glass of water. Okay, there you go. We have our college DB. And I just created a hello world of this professor's container. And at this point of time, we don't have anything. I just create a new one. And I'll tell that ID 101. Name. Okay. I just click on save. And the moment I save it, it creates a bunch of these things. OK, again, we'll come back and learn it a little later. I just want to create a new item. Now, I just want to create entirely different things. I will create.
Excuse me, Swami. I think you are stuck on this Microsoft Docs screen, if I'm right.
Guys,
can anyone?
What are you guys seeing now?
Swami, you're on which? Are you? I see the Azure Cosmos DB diagram. The word.
Oh yeah, I'm in Data Explorer.
Perfect.
I'm in data. OK, cool. Prof ID now B102, and I create something known as salary. I save this. OK, so OK, this ID should be unique. So I will be A111 because the previous one is already created. Do you want to lose that? OK, I'm fine losing it. OK, this is the one which we created. But the thing is that tomorrow I want to add anything. There's no fixed schema. We can add. It's a flexible schema, whatever you want to create it. And the response time is sub-milliseconds. This is just a hello world of the container. We'll create two of these containers. We'll see why do we need those two containers. OK, let me come back and go to the application core. And here we have something known as professor and the professor ID. And we have a student and the student ID. Now, the key thing is when we go to the persistent layer, we have the CosmosDB context. Inside the CosmosDB context, we have professors as well as students. So there should be two containers. So the first container should be professors. There should be a new container. I'm calling it as professors, but be very careful, folks. When you come back to this professors, the professor ID and this one should be professor's ID with P lowercase. P lowercase, and I just create that one container. And that's one container. Let it create that container. And let's come back to this one. There should be another container known as students. Let's give it a minute. OK. And why? Because if you see the item over here, it creates everything with the lowercase. And it's like a camel case. It starts with lowercase and then uppercase. That's the format. So that is the reason, even though we have professors which matches the DB set, but the key in this one, the key here in this professor entity, it is professor's ID. But when it comes to the camel case, the P will be lowercase and I will be capital case. So just to ensure that, if not, you need to spend 1 or 2 minutes more when it throws an error. You will figure it out that it doesn't work. So I'll create a new container. This container, I'm calling it as students. And I go to this one. I take this as a student ID. Yes. OK, student ID. And I just click on OK. It creates it. Let it create that one. And so let's come back here. See that what did we complete? We completed this. We completed section 5 and we saw that how do we create it? See this, even though we added it, it adds it in a lowercase. That is very important. And let's see how do we create a web API. We'll see that. As a control here. OK, this is there. Let's park it as it is and let's come back. Let's come back to this. Let's create an API. So we have a bunch of students here. Let me close this, the DAC pack, and open the bookstore web API. Now in this bookstore web API, we'll see a couple of things. First, let's come back to this one. First, execute it. Let's first execute, then we'll come back and fix our fundamentals. So we have bookstore API, we have bookstore BLL, bookstore core, we have data, we have Redis, we have SQL DAL. So Redis is in future, but I kept it. I didn't add the functionality. So that piece, it throws error. Fine, we are fine with that. OK, because we didn't implement, definitely it throws because we didn't create the Redis cache. So that will be missing. That's fine. But let's learn rest of the things. First thing is let's execute it. Let's see without even knowing what it is. Let's execute it and then we'll come step by step. OK, so the first thing I want to teach you the where this connection string is coming from. OK, so that's the first thing I will teach you. So let me put it here. So we have app settings. You can use app settings. And some people, what they do is they put app settings and they will add this as part of the git ignore file. That means even the connection string, you use a connection string of the development or test, QA, stage, UAT or prod, that will not get checked in. Some people, what they do is they add this app settings. They test it with the dev connection string. Assume that there is a bug. You want to test it. You test it with the UAT connection. And it is Friday. You have to go to the movie. You check in the code and rush to the movie. Monday morning you come, the entire floor knows the UAT credentials because you checked it. So that's the risky thing. So how to protect yourself? So the other way to do is that if you go, you can create something of this kind. You can create a user secret. OK, that user secret will be helping you. So if I right mouse click on that and you can click on the manage user secrets. The manage user secrets, this is where the connection string is there. Even though you have the same connection strings here, but the manage user secrets, this user secrets will be taken the higher precedence. Let's see that. We'll learn step by step. Let it hit the breakpoint. And you come in here, select this, right mouse click on that, and go and do a quick watch. And in the quick watch, you see the configuration manager. And the count is there are 7 providers out there. So one of the provider is Secrets.json. And another provider is AppSettings.json. Another provider is development. So in this Secrets.json, if you go and see that there are 5 items and one of the item is these credentials. So this one will get higher priority. How do you know that? So if you select this builder and get section until here and right mouse click on that and again do a quick watch. When you do that, it's getting this value. OK, and when you do that, so it's getting this section. Where is it getting this section from? Is very important. So if you see that, it goes and gets it from the Secrets.json, even though you have it in app settings, but when you add the secrets, that's what it's going to take the higher precedence, right? So that's one important point. The motivation, why do you need to use the Secrets.json? Because the Secret.json, when I do a right mouse click and open the containing folder, the Secrets.json doesn't belong to my source code location. You see that goes to C users, Lord Krishna, app data, roaming, Microsoft, user secrets, and so blah, 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 blah. So if you go to that user secrets, I have a bunch of secrets which I kept it because every different demos I want to store something because I don't want to put on other stores. So I use a different secret JSONs. So if you see this app settings, if I come in and right mouse click and open the containing folder, that belongs to the source code location. So if I save something, so that's risky. There is a bright chance that this might get exposed. OK, so this one dev001 is the one which I created prior to this demo. So 002. So all I need to do is this change to 002. OK, and then we'll execute. So the first tip is you can use app settings provided, use app settings and put it as part of your git ignore and create a example.app settings because that helps the other team members to know that what all the configuration they have to add it for this API to run. And that helps the DevOps team when they're creating this, what kind of information they need to stuff in, what app configurations they need to create in the app service, how do they inject it. So that reason they need it. But always I suggest that use Secrets.json. Let's go get the API. So click on this. and execute that, you should see errors because I told that we don't have the Redis cache. You'll definitely see the errors in this Redis cache DLL. That's expected. But apart from that, boom. Oh, OK. The database, I forgot to change the database name because I changed only the server name. I should have changed the database name also. So we changed the server name. So that means we are really using the database which we created. It's not with issues. That's cool. Good to know that. So we execute it and we'll come back. I want to teach you something else also. Let it be there and just click on try it and click on execute, and you can come back and see that it throws error on Redis cache. That's expected. Let's leave that piece of error because we didn't create the Redis cache DAL, and after that it goes and you see that how it is progressing. You can see that it comes to the controller. It comes to the controller, and from controller it goes to the business logic layer. And from business logic layer, it goes to the Redis DAL, which is not implemented. Then it goes to the SQL DAL, and then it comes to the books repository from where it goes and brings in the content. OK, you can see that all the records are being retrieved. That's pretty cool. OK, now I want to teach you something else, a layered architecture. So there are multiple ways to do. Either you create a separate libraries or you create a different folders and put it everything in this one. So the advantage of creating a separate layered architecture, the libraries, is that it will be easy for us to write the unit test and certify this because I have this data, I have this books. I implemented one of this entity, and here I have the books repository. So it will be easy for me to go ahead and test this individually instead of waiting on testing it in a bigger piece. Because this one library, the SQL DAL, which uses the Dapper, you can see that we are using the combination of both. We are using Dapper and we'll use the EF core in a moment. Let's hold our breath for a couple minutes. We'll see that. So individually, I can test my own library, certify, have set of unit test cases, a 60% or 70 or 80% coverage, not to cheat, write something to cover it, but it should have valuable test cases. Like you add a test case, it should help not to wake you up 2 a.m. in the midnight saying that there's a production issue. OK, so without cheating, a good test cases. So that helps. So this is the layered architecture. OK, so we'll spend 5 to 6 minutes here. I just want to show you something else. So how the control is flowing. So when someone hits an endpoint, so that endpoint comes and hits this controller. So it's books controller. That means API/books. It comes here. And inside this books, you have two of the dependencies. So one is iBooks and one is iLogger. And while we are here, I would like to give you a tip. So whenever you're doing the constructor injection, whenever you're doing a constructor injection and you're using Visual Studio, you write those two variables and Alt Enter. And it asks for generate constructor. Click on generate constructor, select the variables which you want and click on null check and click on OK. There you go. The beautiful constructor is there. So it adds all these things. We don't need to sweat at all. So that's what I use. Just create it, Alt Enter, select the control. OK. Now, who is injecting this? So what is this dependency injection? What is this? The services container, what it holds. It's big mystery. No, it's very, very easy. It's as simple as your bank account and your ATM card. OK, now you have money deposited in your account. You take your ATM card, insert an ATM card and ask, hey, give me money. It gives you. Imagine a scenario, you don't deposit and go and insert a card into an ATM and ask to give me money. It says a transaction decline. It's as simple as that. Let me show the transaction decline. So I will block this comment. We'll spend 5 to 10 minutes time. These are very, very important fundamental things. We have to learn that. OK, so now I didn't deposit money into my account. I'm taking my ATM card and inserting into an ATM and asking for money. I said that, give me the books. Imagine a scenario, you're inserting money, ATM without depositing money. Then it blows off. It says that unable to resolve, like transaction decline. It says that iBooks BLL, books controller is not able to resolve. OK, so that means something is happening here. So if I uncomment this, it's happening. So we'll see that. So first thing, what it says is it's unable to resolve this iBooks layer. So imagine a scenario. You have a queue. I would like to show that this very important diagram. That's very important diagram. I want to show you that. There you go. This one. I want to speak about this one. So see this, whether it's a gRPC or API or whatever it is. So you have core. So all the cross-cutting concerns will be in core. So the core will be used by API or gRPC. Core will be used by business logic layer, or it will be used by the DAL or repository layer. And DAL is the guy who speaks to the SQL server. The API, some people, they use it. It's all different thoughts. I mean, it's a small project. They say that, OK, I don't need the business logic layer or the core. I create a data access layer and directly use the repository or the DB context itself in the controller. I want to keep it lean. If it works in your project, it works. There's no hard and fast rule. It's no right or wrong, but what goes in? Is it good practice, or is it scalable, or how it is impacting the deliverable? That depends upon that. OK, so you take a guidance from the architect and tech leads and the senior developers on that one. So this is one of the way to do it. It's not the only way to do it. OK, so now what happens is when the API layer has got a dependency. Let's see this diagram with the code. The API layer has got dependency on the business logic layer. You see that here we are implementing the interfaces. OK, so the dependency, you say that this interface. So any concrete implementation, you have to inject it. We'll see that how that happens. Just OK, so that concrete implementation happens here. So when it is trying to construct this books controller, it finds that it needs iBook. That means there is a dependency on a business logic layer. Then it comes and tries to construct this business logic layer. So it comes to this business logic layer and it tries to construct this guy. When it is trying to construct this, that's when it finds that there is a repository layer. Oh, I need to construct that guy first. So then it goes to this DAL or repository layer. So there is the repository layer here. It comes to the repository layer. So in this repository layer, it finds that there is a iData store settings. These things are getting injected. OK, iData store settings is coming in from. That's not here. In the code, in the configuration, iData settings. So it comes in here. So it gets the connection string. And one more important point here is we have something known as a typed configuration. That means we are taking the configuration and loading it in a concrete class, iData store settings. So anytime you need configuration, you don't need to pass this configuration all around the world. All you need to pass this what piece of information. You saw that when we went into the configuration object that has loaded the configuration from 7 different configuration stores. Do you need to pass this configuration all around the world? You don't need to. If you need it, you can. I don't say that you never need to pass it, but it depends upon what works good. But one of the ways, if I need only the SQL connection string or the credits cache or few of those things, why don't I create a typed configuration, load that piece of the configuration in a concrete class, and wherever it needs, we pass it. So net, why we spoke about all these things is when it tries to create the dependency injection, it creates the last man standing who doesn't have any dependency. So in this chain, it creates the DAL and then it injects the DAL in the BLL and then it creates the BLL and injects the BLL inside the constructor. That's how it goes. OK, we'll see that. And again, we'll come back and revisit this and we'll discuss. OK, now let me come back to all these things. Let me close that. Oh, I should be here. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong place. We'll see that twice. The first thing is I will come to this books controller. Let me put a debugger over here. And then I'll go to the business logic layer and I'll put debugger over here. The business logic layer has got dependency on the books repository and as well as the cache. We don't worry about the cache as of now because we didn't implement. Let's go to this books and the books is here. And the next thing it goes to the this one. So here. OK, so let's start this. First, let's learn this, how this dependency injection entire pipeline is getting created. So I click on this get books and I execute this. So I told you, isn't it, the last man standing who doesn't have any dependency, that is this data store that it got created. And then who is next? The next is repository. So we saw that. So there's a data store settings that gets injected in DAL. And now you can see that the data store settings, it got constructed. And then you got all the settings. Then you see this iData store settings. At this point of time, it is null, but it got injected through the construction. And now it created the DAL layer. Then it comes to the business logic layer. Come on, stop there. OK, anyways, it goes and throws exception for the Redis. That's the reason. OK, now see that after the DAL, it gets this DAL book repository because we know that the cache doesn't exist, but the book repository. When you go to the book repository, see that it has loaded the data store and data store has got these two things. So this is the one first it got created, then it created the repository, then it comes and creates the business logic layer. See this, the BLL gets created. Now see this, initially the book repository is null. Now that got constructor injected. Now this gets created. I don't need to worry about that. Now I click on this. Now it comes here. Now you see this. I will execute this. You have the business logic layer. Now when you go inside the business logic layer, it has got dependency on the repository. And repository has got a dependency on the data store settings and the data store settings doesn't have any dependency. So that's the guy who first created and gets injected in the repository and then repository gets created, gets injected in the business logic layer. Business logic layer gets created and gets injected in the controller. That's how you get the content. That's how this dependency injection is getting injected. OK, so final tip. Now the final tip. Now, who is holding all these things? Where are these things coming from? This is a very good experiment, guys. Just let's focus on this. Next 3 minutes will be very, very interesting. That is I really love that. I don't know whether it makes you interesting or not, but let's see. I'm trying to do my best to make it interesting. So let's execute this. So there is something known as services. So we just create this builder. Once we go to the builder, there is known as services. You go to the services, there are 81 services. This is like your bank account. This is your bank account. Like it has got 81 services which it got injected. That means that's a service collection. See that. This is dependency injection service collection. This builder.services, this guy is our guy. So it has got 81 dependencies. At this point of time, it has got 81 dependencies. So the moment we add this, add cores, now again you go and check that. Again, you go and check that. Now 84. So 84, that's cool. So 84 plus the moment you add controllers. So all of a sudden it bumps like anything. Now, once you add this controllers, all the way from 84 to 173 dependencies it added. So you can see that when you go to this result view, you can see that what all the libraries. So what is this interface and what is the concrete type? You can do a deep dive into that, but I'm just letting you know that this is a container which holds this one. And let's do a quick, that was 173. We don't need to worry about that. Let's go add and add and add and add. And here, let's stop here. Right mouse click and go on this one. So all the way from 173 to 190. So let's go and see that where are our dependencies. So all the way scroll down and wait here. See that? iBook repository, iBook cache repository, iBook BLL, iRedis cache, iData store settings. These are all the things we have created these interfaces and implemented the concrete classes and loaded everything in the service container. So once the service container is done and anywhere you need those dependencies. So anywhere you need those dependencies, all you need to do is that ask it, hey, give me this interface. Say that, give me iBook. So now you understand when you ask for give me the iBook, it is properly loading and it is giving it to you. You'll see that. Click on that. It comes to construct the controller. It finds that it needs BLL. It goes, tries to construct BLL. It identifies it needs repository. It goes for repository. Then it needs the data store settings. It brings in. Now you can see that the controller has got IBLL and the BLL has got repository and the book repository has got data store settings. Data store setting has got nothing. If not, it further goes down the lane to bring it. So hope this was pretty interesting to know that. I really loved it, but it took some time for me to understand this one. So you need to have a good understanding of this one so that, you know, it will help you write better software. So we did a deep dive on app settings and Secrets.json and layered architecture and the dependency injection. So we saw we saw 6, we saw 8, and let's see 10, and then we'll come back. OK. Let's see that. I'll keep this executed so that we'll see it. Yeah, I don't need any of those things. And let's see. I'll take another instance of Visual Studio. This is for the Blazor WASM. OK, all these are in .NET 6, but please give me 1 or 2 weeks time. I have some other session I need to prepare for that, but I will be definitely pushing the code as I was mentioning to this repository. Please keep a watch on this one. Learn AZ-204. All our future coding will be here. OK, and the speaker series is the one where you get under C# folder, you get all these episodes, and the key thing is rest of the things are there, and we have very big plans for next year. So chase us. Yeah, let's go and see this integration and couple of tips. And again, this is I just touch upon. We'll come back and do a deep dive. This is a simple Blazor WASM, .NET 6 Blazor WASM, but we are going to do the container stuff. We'll see that container also, but that I want to show it here on my local box. And this is my Azure virtual machine. And one key thing here which I want to highlight is the dependency injection of this HTTP client. So inside this HTTP client, iData service that's coming from this layer, high data service, and this is the data service, and that makes the call using the HTTP client. It makes the call, but there is a better way to do it. We will see that in future, but as of today, for this is a starting point. Whatever we are seeing is just one call, get all. OK, let's see that. And let's execute it. The key thing is at this point of time within this dub root, you have app settings, and the app setting holds that 7174. So let's see that. Is it 7174? It's on that. So you can see at this point of time, there are no calls on that whatsoever. So let's come to this web app and just click on this. And let's go to this books. And the moment you do the books, you can see this one. So now the Blazor is hitting this API, and API goes and brings the content from SQL Server. And you can see that it has got this one. I mean, I have an improvised version of this one, but I don't know where did I lose it, but I'll improvise this a little bit further. So that's about a very simple hello world integration, and it's not responsive design. I did a responsive design somewhere else. I have the code. I will bring it back because see this. Actually, this button should be at the bottom so that all the time it should be there. Have a responsive design also, but I will update this one. OK, so that's very we'll deploy all these things, like we deploy this web API in virtual machine and as well as in app service, and we'll deploy the Blazor WASM in virtual machine and app service in a different combinations. We'll do that. Sometimes one of the API let's deploy in Azure container instance or in app service as a Docker container. There are multiple ways. People will go. I mean, I was going mad seeing all those options I have to deploy. We'll see everything. That's where the next episode will be fully action packed. Now it's all deployment there. Let's do the final demo is the CosmosDB. OK, so let's come back to this CosmosDB. And that's this one. Let's click on this. Let's click on items and let's see, do we have anything else here? OK, there's nothing. It might fail. I don't know, but let me and guys, I think you guys understood the dependency injection funda, how this happens. OK, so let's come back over here. OK, that's the previous one. Let's change it. Let's come back to the keys. And let me take this keys. Endpoint. That's an endpoint. And I'm getting in the account key. account key, and the college DB is the same. So let's click on college API. It started the Swagger, and we saw in depth on all those concepts. So I just don't want to again go into the same concept. So it's hitting the first call. So it has to construct and go get. There are no records because we saw that. Nothing in here. The data explorer. The college DB. Now professors. There's nothing in here, right? So you can click on that. Okay, like let's go and minimize this. And let's create a professor. Let's try this. And professor name is. Okay, and teaches C#, and the salary is 1, 2, 3. I mean, I should have done the Postman scripts. I didn't get time to do the Postman scripts, but let's see that. This is Manish, and roll number is M10101, and the fees is, I will keep something like this. Okay, so let me execute this and see if it works. Well and good. If it doesn't work, then also it's well and good. Okay, it's taking time. Ooh. Student, see the error exception response, and a student ID. Oh, okay. Oh, the student ID was same. I'm sorry. Let's check that 1 second. Did it create any of the record? Okay, so it created the professor record, and looks like it. No, there's nothing in student. So let's go to online GUID generator, because we need a separate GUIDs for that. So generate GUID. Okay, this GUID is the one which will take it. And let's use that for the professor. Okay. And this is the professor ID. And let's generate another GUID. And this GUID will use it for student. Hope this works now. So let's create that. Why? 1 second. Oh, geez. I was expecting the student to be there. Actually, the student record should be there. I'm sorry. 1 second. I should have added the student before adding it to the professor. OK, so let me add a new item. And this one is, I'll keep it S101. And this one is student ID, because that should exist. And student name. What is it object? Just give me a minute, because that student should exist before added, because I added all those things previously in there. Manish, and roll number. That will be roll number M101. Okay, then the fees is 222.33. Let me save this. Okay, so we have the student, and now I can add that to the professor. I can add that to the professor. I think the professor record we already added. Let's check that. Okay, there are two professors. So let me select this professor and delete it. And let me delete both the professors. Let me delete both the professors. OK, let's see one final time. If it works, well and good. If not, we'll see that in the next one. That's what we created, isn't it? Same student. Created. That. Professor created. And the student. Yeah, that's the professor ID. Oh, Jesus. Somewhere it is adding this one. I'll check that one. Why it is adding? Because that's the problem. So it is adding this. I'll check that one. No, that's not a problem, guys. So what did we do? Let's do a quick recap. So we have created the SQL Server and database, and we have added the firewall settings, and we were able to do a DAC pack deployment. And then we create a CosmosDB. And then we created the web API in .NET 6, and we learned about app settings. We learned about Secrets.json. We learned about layered architecture, and then we learned about the layered architecture, and then we learned about the dependency injection and what is the dependency service collection, what holds that. So we saw all those things, and then we checked about Blazor WASM and how did we integrate Blazor WASM with the API, which talks to the SQL Server, and then we integrated CosmosDB with the web API. I mean, the child records are not getting saved. I'll just check that one. OK, so the next episode will be deploying the apps to the this the virtual machine as well as the web apps. And if the next episode, we'll see the containerization, but at least to a decent extent, let's spend time to deploy these applications to the virtual machines and then app service, then see the difference, how much investment which we need to do to deploy these applications to a virtual machine. How do you configure IAS configuration? Everything will come in, and how do you deploy to the app service, and where do you create the configuration? OK, so that's it. Yeah, Javed, you can unmute and we can speak.
Yeah, thank you so much for your sessions. It was very fruitful. My question is about the CosmosDB editor. Is there any recommended editor that I can use to create it or deals with the database, like the management studio for SQL Server? This is the first question. The second question, what's the difference between CosmosDB and the MongoDB? Because I have seen both of them have the same, but why I what the question, why the question leaded me to ask it, because I want to came to ask about, does the Cosmos DB supporting the big data stuff or the big data ecosystems? Yeah, thank you. That's my question.
Okay. How do you pronounce your first name?
Correct. You called Jawad, which is the correct.
Jawad. Okay, thanks. What was your first question? I'm really
I'm
sorry.
asking about. I'm asking about the proper, or let's say, the good editor for the Cosmos DB. Which one you recommended to use?
Oh, okay. So the Cosmos DB, there are the tools. One of the Cosmos DB is there is a local Cosmos DB emulator also, and we can write our own Cosmos DB Cosmos DB viewer ourselves. But I think there should be
you're
some.
right. But just to avoid, because I have seen during the session you have some issue when you're trying to add a new record or add a new document, you fall in some errors. Maybe if we have some proper tools that will be help us in the protection.
Oh, yeah. I think the Azure there is a the old one. One second. Azure Storage
Yes,
Explorer. Azure. This one, Azure Storage Explorer. This guy used to give that. I think he told that they are deprecating it, but to a decent extent, the Azure Storage Explorer, it supports the Cosmos DB, but the SQL Server and other things which you can use it from the Azure Data Studio. See, most of these tools, you know, they are coming. Most of these tools, they are coming with the extension point, because every now and then they are adding extensions. If you see that, so let's see that MySQL. So some people they're adding for MySQL or SQLite. So a lot of these tools are there. People are adding it. So anytime sooner see this. So some of the things they are adding it. So different tools like this is the Azure Data Studio. So you can check the Visual Studio also for the extension. Like if you check for this MySQL, they might add it. So someone is adding, but ensure that we are using only the authenticated like Cosmos DB. So Microsoft, they themselves are adding this one. You can see this. We have this Cosmos DB, the database explorer. They are supporting the Cosmos, and you can use this here. See this, they are using it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. The next question about what is the difference between Cosmos DB and MongoDB in general.
That's like a generic question, but let's see this one. Like MongoDB, like MongoDB is NoSQL. It comes with this this one piece. But if you come and see this the Cosmos DB, the Cosmos DB is coming with 5 different flavors. So one of the flavor of that is, if you see that, one of the flavor is the Leaf API for MongoDB. So that means they are providing the MongoDB equivalent to MongoDB or almost MongoDB features. They are supporting it. So you can have you can use your core SQL skills, or you can have the MongoDB, or you can have a Graph Gremlin, or you can have a Cassandra column family, or you can have this key value kind of things. So it has got a lot of API support. So still, if you're having the MongoDB, but still want to use this Cosmos DB, you can use this, create a Cosmos DB account with MongoDB API and start using it. But again, you need to do a thorough feasibility test and a little bit of perf test to check that what facilities or what deep features you're using in MongoDB, and does the MongoDB API of Cosmos DB supports everything, or is there a workaround? So until you do that tech feasibility and a spike on this, it might be a little risky to migrate it. I mean, definitely everyone is supporting. It's not that they're not supporting. And also on top of that, if I'm not wrong, I think this guy also, I mean, Azure also supports Mongo DB. See that?
Okay.
It supports that. MongoDB Atlas Pro on Azure. You can have pure Mongo here in Azure, or you can have CosmosDB or Mongo.
Did you share any screen? Because I didn't see what you were sharing. If you share any screen.
Oh, I'm really sorry.
Because
yeah, let me share that.
Yeah.
Javed, you can see Javed here.
It's loading right now. Yeah, I get it.
Mongo, the MongoDB Atlas on Azure, and Mongo Atlas Pro on Azure, and also Azure Cosmos DB API for MongoDB. When we are and they're supporting, that means almost equivalent features they would have given it. I mean, before anyone putting it to the general availability, they would have definitely tested all these features are to a decent extent that everything is working definitely.
Okay, thank you for your answers.
Thanks, Javed. Anyone else has got any queries? How was the session? I forgot to ask the feedback. Any positive or negative feedback? Please feel free to tell, because your feedback will help me prepare content, better content. You know, do not hesitate. I mean, if you have any negative feedback, please feel free. Anyone? Kunal Patel or Vidya Sagar, Javed or Mohammad Rafi. Who else are there? Ali. And a few names which I'm unable to pronounce. I'm really sorry for that. Jairaj, Davesh, Kunal, Naved, Tabakurishi, my younger one. Umar or Vishal. Anyone else got any feedback? Please feel free to tell me whether positive or negative feedback. I'll be more than happy because.
Thanks, Vishwanath Swami. So it's very nice demo and very informative about the shop corner and everything you shared. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Mohammed. I mean, there are a lot of other sessions which are going to come. It's just like as I was mentioning, I don't mind spending number of hours or number of sessions. My main goal is the knowledge. You guys are investing time, so